This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex on
Oh, yes, everybody. The Fantasy Flex Dynasty Podcast is back. We are here. It is again the early morning. I don't know why we keep doing the early mornings. It just happens to work out, but I'm kind of liking it. It's a niche. I get up, I take my shower, I get going, and in my mind, I'm like, yeah, let's get ready. And then I get out, get some coffee, sit back here in this cold dungeon that I'm at, and I'm sure it's colder where you are probably right now, but on the other side of the computer desk here, Shane O'Mac, what's going on, brother?
What is up, Matthew Beckasaurus Rex? So I've been thinking about this, okay? So for those of people who don't know, Matt is pursuing a, would you call it a late breakout career in professional wrestling? What would you call that, Matt?
Yeah, it's going to be a late breakout for sure. I'm going to pull off one of these unforsaken late breakout careers of pretty much anything, starting when I'm 30, starting to get back on the horse.
Right, you're the Adam Thielen of professional wrestling.
Hey, if I'm as good as Adam Thielen at professional wrestling, I would be the greatest professional wrestler on the world for about 10 weeks straight.
That'd be awesome. So what's your name then?
I'm not that far yet. I'm really not that far yet. Just a little bio on me. Been a pro wrestling fan my whole entire life. Obviously, took some time away from it just because the product wasn't very fun anymore. There wasn't any competition, but since 4 or 5 years ago, I would say, just started to kind of get back into it, looking for another avenue to be to have fun. Like I'm getting older. I'm kind of hitting my, I don't know why, but like I was looking at 30 like a midlife crisis. You got people dropping dead around me all the time. I rest in peace to my cousin. He just died. He was 30 years old. Died from cancer. Yeah, it's very sad, but if you don't take these opportunities as a slap in the face, then who are you? I mean, you just continue to go down the hole of darkness. And so I just kind of said to myself, man, it's like 30 is kind of half-life now. You used to be 40.
It's a third. Come on now.
Hey, I would rather treat every day like it's a holiday. So, if I can just try to find some fun in something out there. And so that's why I do this podcast. And that's why I started pro wrestling training at 30 years old, just because I want to do something different. I want to try something new. I want to see what I can do. I know that I'm going to be hot on the mic, and that's what I do. And I feel like, 90% of pro wrestling is being able to talk, the athletic stuff.
It seems sizzle, right?
It's the sizzle. It's the pop. It's radio gold. Right. Yes, baby. Anyway, it's going to be fun. We're going to start this podcast off a little less about me and more about you. So we started last week.
Talking about me.
Last week we started our weekly trade analyzer. We went ahead and kind of had a little bit of an analysis on a trade last week. I believe it was 1.6, 1.9 for Joe Mixon. That was a spirited conversation. I think we all had something to say about that. But this week's trade involves you, my friend.
This one's straight out of me. So I have slowly gone down the dynasty rabbit hole in the last 2 years. I kind of have you to blame for this year. But early on in this season, I took over a random orphan team. And so I've slowly been trying to rebuild pieces and pieces throughout the offseason. But this was a pretty interesting team because I got a pretty solid core of running backs in this dynasty team. I got Zeke, I got Delvin Cook, and I've got Marlon Mack as my foundation. But then my wide receiver one, who I think we'll talk about maybe a little bit later, but it's Kenny G, actually. Kenny Golladay is my wide receiver one. And that, I mean, Golladay, I would say, is a pretty legit two, but I really don't have a one. So I've been going out there. I've been trying to farm some value at wide receiver. But the problem is, in these dynasty leagues, people just hang on to these guys like with the tight vice grip, right? So I mean, I'm trying to get a guy like freaking, I don't know, like a mid-range late. Like I bet you an AB. These donkeys in my league are gonna ask for like a Dalvin Cook straight up for AB. I'm like, that's not going to happen, right? So you have to kind of know your league. So I had an opportunity where this guy was trying to get some of my players. I had a few sexy names on my team. I got a Mark Andrews on my team. I had Curtis Samuel on my team. Lots of offseason buzz, lots of offseason talk about these two players. And so I had one guy who approached me. We kind of went back and forth, but we ended up agreeing on a deal. So this is just it's a standard. It's a non-super flex, non-tight end premium. It's just, you start your one QB, you start your one tight end. It's a regular full point PPR. But I traded away Mark Andrews, Michael Gallup, and Curtis Samuel, as in, a couple sexy names. Curtis Samuel especially. I mean, there's been lots of buzz about him in that Carolina offense. Has taken a next step forward.
Love
so
Curtis
a lot of
Samuel.
offseason buzz. Oh, I do too, absolutely. But I ended up trading them for Tyler Boyd, who is like the flagship of that trade, Austin Hooper, and then Jordan Scarlett. So obviously Jordan Scarlett, who's the I think he was a 5th round running back that the Panthers drafted this year. He's kind of a throw-in, but essentially, I'm getting a guy in Tyler Boyd who, again, he's not a one, but as you start to get a couple twos on your team, you start to get that depth and you start to get that strength. So then if you have a couple guys that can break out, then like I drafted this year, I got Paris Campbell and Debo in the 1st round in this league. And I was okay to trade away Mark Andrews because I was getting an Austin Hooper back. Now, I think that the Baltimore offense is a little bit more upside in terms of they're going to want to use Mark Andrews, and especially because he's got a year in the system now. He's got a year with Lamar. But Austin Hooper, I mean, he's only 24 years old. He's now, I think, in his 3rd year, I want to say, with the Falcons. And yes, I know there's a lot of targets to go around on that Atlanta offense, but here's a guy he's shown that he can catch the ball. He's shown that he knows how to block, which means he's going to be on the field. And frankly, I think there's going to be lots of opportunity for him to catch the ball. So let's call that a push. And then I'm getting Tyler Boyd, who last year, man, he showed that he could shine. Yes, when AJ Green was injured and Boyd was forced into the number 1 role, he wasn't quite the alpha that we kind of hoped that he would be. But he showed that he could perform. And I mean, he's still a young guy. So I think that as he continues to progress here, he could, as AJ Green gets older and inevitably gets injured again this year, I think that he can take that step forward and he could be the number 1 passing option in that Cincinnati offense. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, so you say that you had Kenny Golladay as your number 1 receiver just because he stands a little bit out from Curtis Samuel, Michael Gallup. So and that's definitely got to be a factor there. But when the people that we listen to, i.e. Roster Watch, they pretty much they love to hearken back to how trades work in one very simple way. You always want to be getting the best player in the trade. And so you essentially did that. So Tyler Boyd is definitely a tier ahead of Gallup and Curtis Samuel. Essentially, you traded 2 number 2 wide receivers on their own team that have ideally only number 2 upside. I mean, I don't see Gallup or Curtis Samuel having number 1 wide receiver upside ever in their entire career. You got Amari Cooper in that system that's taking a young Amari Cooper that's taking every bit of that number one opportunity. And then you have a young DJ Moore that's taking every bit of that number one opportunity in that offense. Unless these guys go anywhere else, they're just going to be farmed as a number two. There's no way that they're going to get number one wide receiver production. I don't even think on an injury, Michael Gallup becomes their number one receiver. And so when you trade it for Tyler Boyd, there's so much upside in Tyler Boyd. He is a guy that is essentially their number one. AJ Green is great. AJ Green is great, but the guy has not been healthy and he is old. Okay. So essentially that team looks at Tyler Boyd as their future number one. They're not parking him in the number two wide receiver role. They're not. They're moving him around the field. They're getting him the ball. They're making sure that he is their asset moving forward. Although the thing I don't like about Tyler Boyd is that the offense runs through the Red Rocket. Okay. and we saw with Eli Manning, those offenses can't support much more than even one guy, and that's kind of something that we'll get into as our podcast grows a little more, because I think what a big hot take this year is anemic offenses. I don't think that the fantasy industry has really been snuffed up to that yet. I'm sniffing around it a little bit more and doing my own research and trying to develop my own strategy. A strategy that if everybody kind of waits and sees, I think I'm going to pull off a strategy this year and redraft that's going to blow everybody's minds. I did it last year too, but I think that last year my strategy, because I went on the DFS Army podcast with our friend Weird Al and the Geek, and I believe it was just me and Weird Al that we had this podcast, but I had what was called the Freak Show strategy last year. And I think that this year, yep, because he was calling me the Fantasy Freak, which is, I developed that. I blossomed that into the Flex Freak, Fantasy Flex Freak strategy. That's me. I'm freaking out over here because I've got this strategy that
we call it Flexonomics, right?
Flexonomics. We call it the fucking just big bicep bulging flex. It doesn't matter. What we're doing is we're trying to flex on all of our competitors in our fantasy leagues with this show to try to help you turn your dynasty hopes around. But I've got a strategy in redraft that we're going to get to because it's not redraft season and I'm still developing it on my cheat sheet. But either way, Tyler Boyd.
Taste? You got to give him a little taste. Just a hint.
I can't, because if
sprinkle, you have to.
If I give the littlest taste, just the littlest fondling. I mean, who starts with a fondling and doesn't, it's tough. Who dips one chip in the chocolate and then puts it away? Okay. The Pandora's box, when it's open, it blasts open. Okay. It explodes.
I found out yesterday that my mom's been listening to our podcast, so I don't know how much fondling I want to talk about.
Okay, well now I just gonna slither back into my hermit hole.
And slink. That's right.
But Tyler Boyd, he has number one wide receiver upside. He also has, I would say, top 12 dynasty wide receiver upside, which is a true number one, not just a number one in football, but he has true number one wide receiver upside. And especially what if something crazy happens in Cincinnati where they decide to off Dalton right at his head and go and draft someone young and awesome. And I feel like every real NFL football team is looking for that Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. What's kind of crazy is that Russell Wilson got drafted in the 3rd round. And now everybody's like, oh, okay. Now Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall. Now Kyler Murray, number 1 overall. These quick, fast, athletic, accurate quarterbacks are now no longer being looked at as your 3rd round picks. And your Drew Locks are going in your 2nd round now. And it's just kind of crazy how the entire NFL has just flipped on its head since Russell Wilson, which is awesome because I live in Seattle.
I think that's I think that's a good little tangent. Like, why do you think that is? I
Well,
think I know.
because
I know why. I think that is.
Well, I think we all know what it is, but I mean, in this, I've never seen it put this way. But when you look at fantasy football, which is what kind of podcast we are, right? Why not when you talk about being safe at quarterback, right? What is safe? Do you want to get a guy that is like Drew Brees, that passes the ball, 4,500 times a year or at least, or do you want to get a guy that can guarantee you 50 yards rushing and a touchdown on top of all their passing upside? So to me, it's like that's raising their floor. So when you draft these guys like Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray is going to get you, or Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is going to get you 60 yards on the ground, a potential score on his feet, on top of every bit of passing production that he's going to have. Now, the difference between Lamar and Kyler is Kyler's accurate. Lamar is going to just throw it in some general direction and hope his guy comes down. But why do you think that is?
I think it's fundamentally because of how the league is changing. I mean, you look at, I don't know if you listen to any of the FSGA experts draft that SiriusXM is showing online.
Of course I did. It was a good thing. What I don't like is 14 team. I just wish that like there's not a lot of people playing 14 teams. So the content doesn't get dragged over the masses, but as far as what it is in showing ADP and draft strategy, it's great. So it's fun to listen to anything fantasy football in late
absolutely.
June.
I salivate when I hear, all right, we got these expert drafts. You just go and you listen to it. And it was our roster watch boys that were breaking down some of those drafts. But anyways, in one of these expert drafts, Christian McCaffrey went 101, which, I mean, I guess pick your flavor with those top 4 running backs. But I mean, to me, that's just a testament of look at how the league has changed in the last 10 years. It's not those grinding running backs that just hit the hole over and over and over again. Like those where you get a running back that catches a game. It's these guys that can catch the ball. It's these short little dump offs. It's in the receiving game. It's these slot possession wide receivers. And so you see a guy like a Kyler Murray, where, to your point, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks that's played in college football in the last 30 years. You get a Baker Mayfield ever. I think Baker was 1, and I think Kyler was 2. But you get these shorter guys that are extremely athletic, extremely quick. I mean, Kyler, like to your point, he can get you a floor of 50 yards per game, pretty much. Which, depending on what your scoring is set up in your leagues, whether it's 6-point touchdowns or 4-point touchdowns, like that's pretty much a floor down. Plus, it's probably going to get you. I mean, let's be realistic. Like, let's not get over. What do they say? Cart before the horse before the cart. Where we think that Kyler's going to come in and he's going to be throwing for 300 yards every game, 2 touchdowns. Like, I don't think that's realistic, right? There's going to be a learning curve even for these young guys, but he's going to have that floor with rushing. Say he puts up 250 yards and maybe gets a touchdown in. Like, he's still going to be putting up pretty substantial numbers, and that's the start, right? As his career goes on, as he gets more comfortable in the NFL, he's going to go and he's going to become that. I think he's going to become a Russell Wilson type elite quarterback in the league. And it's all because he's quick. He's going to be able to understand defenses, because they're going to have to spy him, right? Because they don't want him rushing and just killing them on the ground, which means there's going to be safe spots to throw the ball, and that's just natural, right? So with a guy who's that accurate, he's going to be able to protect the ball and march down the field. And like, look what the Patriots have done. Tom Brady's not bombing it every second throw. No, they're a possession team, and they've shown that model works. Like, look at the James Whites, man. He held that team together when there was the injuries, when Julian Edelman was out early in the year last year. Like, this is how the league is going. And so that's why you see these maybe less traditional Dwayne Haskins type quarterbacks nowadays that are being successful and that are getting drafted at the 101 spot. And that's why it kind of pisses me off that our boy Sully gets the nuts 101 in a rookie draft coming up later this summer. Because, man, Kyler's going to be good.
Yeah, Kyler's going to be great. By the end of redraft season, he will be I mean, he'll be overdrafted, I think, definitely, but it's tough. It's really tough. In Dynasty, I look at him as a top 5 QB in Dynasty. I got Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, shoot me off the hip, or Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, and then kind of go ahead.
I just want to say, I mean, I think that I think I'm on board to say that he's going to be a top 10 QB for sure. Like, I would be shocked if he's not at least a top 10 QB. But just going back to my original point, we haven't seen this guy play a single down in the NFL. And yes, the talent is there, but man, I'm still not quite there. I want to see how he plays before I just simply anoint him as a top 5. I mean, I think that's disrespectful to so many of the quarterbacks in this league that have shown what they've done. I mean, shit, like, I wouldn't say I'm a
he's 6
Cousins guy.
He's 6. Sorry, because 5 is Russell Wilson, and then right after Russell. Because it would be awfully disrespectful not to put him behind Russell. I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't forget, but I was kind of going. I don't have it in front of me, but Russell's 5, and then Aaron Rodgers 6. Okay, then Kyler 7. But after that, that's got to be it, right? That's got to be it.
Let's call it a top 10. Let's call it a top 10. But I mean, I think it's just an example of it's a new league, right? Like, you've got these quarterbacks that are coming into the league that are going to have impact in their first year. And then if you lock this kid down in Dynasty, man, like, this guy can have a 15-year career if he's good. But what we've seen and what you need to see in a player's game that primarily is a running quarterback is you need to see them progress throughout their career, right? They need to be able to at some point put it all together so that they're not just a running quarterback, so that they're a passing quarterback. I mean, you look at a guy like Cam Newton, who I mean, obviously is one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the league, but he's slowly put his game together. He doesn't run as often as he used to run. I mean, this guy, I think Cam's 6'4", 6'5". He's a big dude. So he's a guy who, even at that size, could take hits. And even now, he's still a running quarterback, but he's evolved the game so that he's more than just a running quarterback. And I think that's why there's so many skeptics out there for Lamar Jackson, is that, the guy, of course, like, he's arguably one of the best running quarterbacks since Michael Vick. That's what everybody is saying. But until he puts the whole package together where he can actually throw the ball, I don't think people are quite there to anoint him to saying, okay, yeah, he's going to be a top 15 even dynasty quarterback. Whereas just look at a guy like Kyler, where he can throw the ball. He is quick. I mean, obviously there's criticisms coming into the league whether or not he'd be able to perform just simply because he's smaller than everybody else. He's going to be one of the smallest guys on the field. But if he learns to be able to protect himself, get the ball out quickly, and then he still has that upside with his legs, man, it can be scary. Like, it's going to be pretty scary to see this guy in the field. I think his sophomore season is just going to be bananas.
I think that the reason why that Kyler's getting so quickly anointed is because he has something different than what Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson had when they first came in the league. I mean, they're finally putting a team around Cam Newton that can realistically play with his style. I mean, you got Christian McCaffrey. Now that McCaffrey's there, Cam Newton is and will go bananas. I mean, that's his safe place. It took him a little while to get someone like McCaffrey that can pretty much just find the open hole and be there and be an out for Cam Newton. Then you got Lamar Jackson, who has 0 receiving core and 0 running back core. And the reason why he's primarily been a running quarterback is because he's been running for his life with nobody to pass the ball to. And so now they're trying to build around him. They're getting him Mark Ingram. They're drafting Justice Hill. They drafted Hollywood Brown. I mean, they're really trying to put pieces around him. Now, I actually love what they're doing in Baltimore because I think they're putting the right pieces around him, because I don't think that he's an accurate downfield passer. And so what they need to do is get speedsters all over the field, and I think that's what they're drafting for. But I think why Kyler Murray is being anointed so early is because he's got every piece. They got David Johnson. They got Larry Fitzgerald. They got Christian Kirk. They're ready to go right now.
Andy Isabella.
And they drafted Andy Isabella. They've got Chase Edmonds. They've got every piece they need right now on the offense. And so they're ready to go. I mean, realistically.
Well, then if Hakeem Butler can put it together as well, right? I mean, he's a guy that people loved coming into the draft this year, and then he fell. But he's talented, and if he can produce, man, they got a pretty sick receiving core. And it's all under the guidance of Larry Fitzgerald, like one of the fucking goats, man. He's just, if these guys can come in and learn how to be professionals from Larry, I think that the Cardinals in 2 years, they can be probably a Super Bowl contending team. They just got to fix that defense.
Well, then the defense is good. The defense is good. They have the #1 sack leader in Chandler Jones, I believe, from a year ago or something like that. And then they got Patrick Peterson in the but he's suspended. But I mean, they're older pieces. But now when you think about it, I mean, look at the Arizona Cardinals, like you said, team that's a Super Bowl contender in the next couple of years, because all they have to do is spend all their draft capital on the defense and offensive line now. Or just defense in general and their offensive line. I mean, it makes it really easy that you don't have to waste draft capital on a running back or a wide receiver, or a quarterback. I mean, realistically,
Absolutely.
That's first 2 or 3 rounds in most drafts for a lot of teams. So they don't have to do that, and they can focus on something different. Let's get into Tyreek Hill a little bit.
All right. Let's do it.
Here's what's kind of crazy to me. Tyreek Hill, maximum 4-game suspension. Okay, that news dropped. Everybody went bananas. Some people are like, oh my gosh, only 4 games. And it said maximum, which means he could get only 2 or 3. I think for sure they're going to slap him with the maximum, because number one, it's kind of his second offense. Okay. And then there is an audio, but there's no video. So you don't see a 6 to 8 game suspension like there was for Kareem Hunt. You're only seeing a maximum of 4. Now, I think he's going to get a 4-game suspension, and then we'll be done with it. They're going to give Tyreek another chance, and they're going to sign him to a long-term deal. They're going to now a lot of people are like, well, why are you signing this guy? Like, he's definitely a risk. Well, yeah, he's a risk, but he just got in trouble. So now he should be on the cheap in comparison to what he was going to get right before all this came out, because he was due for a contract this year no matter what. They were going to sign him probably the highest wide receiver paid contract in the whole entire NFL. And now I feel like they're going to sign him for a whole year's less money from anybody else because of the discount that they're going to get from all of this information. Also, 4-game suspension. Okay. What the biggest talk about Tyreek Hill is, where do you think Tyreek Hill goes now in a dynasty redraft? Okay, I was seeing 6th round before this news. He is a top 2nd round pick in my eyes in
now?
dynasty read. No, in if there was no suspension.
Oh,
now,
okay, yeah. I would argue he's probably a top round. He might fall in the top round if
he could be a 1st round pick. So you got to assume that his value now is somewhere between the 1st round and the 4th round now, because I feel like the 4th, the 5th, or the 5th and the 6th round are more just because of the suspension talk. He should be in the top 4 rounds, but if it was me, I'm still going to pick him in the 1st round. I am going, personally, I'm going right to the 1st round, and I'm going to draft him. And then I'm going to go ahead and get Damian Williams in the 4th round or the 3rd round. And I'm going to say, hey, listen, we looked at this when Julian Edelman was suspended. 4 games, and then what? Everybody pushed him to the 7th or 8th round, sometimes the 6th round. After the 4 games came back, he was a steady 15 points for your team. And all year long. He is going to come back after 4 games, and you're never going to hear about the suspension again until he gets another one. And you're going to see him rock off 25 to 30 points a game. So 4 games to me is the fulcrum. If it was 5 or 6, then I would be like, okay, I might push him. But 4 games, that's nothing. In a dynasty redraft, you're going to get this guy for the next 4 or 5 years under Patty Mahomes' rocket arm. He is the only person that can get downfield for him like that. he is the only reason that team can operate the way that they do with Mahomes' arm. Who else do you know that can run under Mahomes' arm and track that ball 70 yards down the field? Tell me, who else?
Oh, I mean, there's guys who in theory
There
could
is
do it, like
nobody
John
else.
Ross.
Anybody in theory can run a straight line fast. They can't track a ball 70 yards while breaking a defender's ankles 50 yards downfield. I mean, you saw a couple passes last year that were just unbelievable, like bananas. Like he wouldn't,
Well, I think,
like,
you know, that's like, sorry to cut you off, Matt, but I mean, that pretty much just like you just had the argument as to why Mecole Hardman is a risky player this year. I mean, so I'm just going to take 2 steps back though. First of all, Tyreek Hill and his legal team, they met with the NFL last week, and there was speculation that came out of it that Hill could receive a maximum of a 4-game suspension. So that's not a for sure thing. At this point, it is still just speculation. Um, Personally, I would be shocked if it's less than 8 games. And I think that the reason for that is, I mean, we talk about precedent, right? And you look at what happened with Adrian Peterson when he was involved with his son. What was that? Probably 3 years ago at this point, 4 years ago. And he was put on the commissioner's exempt list for the entirety of that season. I remember they were supposed to play the Pats that weekend, and AP got suspended, and it was like, oh, sweet, all right, this is going to be a layup game for the Patriots. But I would actually be shocked if it's 4 games, and the reason for that is if any more information comes out. I mean, to your point, all they have is audio, but they have a lot of situational evidence, including a broken arm, including a child being taken from his home. And I think that if the NFL goes soft on this guy and only gives him 4 games, I think there's going to be a lot of outrage out there. And I don't think that they want to do that. So, I mean, how many games did Zeke get last year? Was it 4 or was it 6?
I think it was like 6 reduced to 4, or like 4
Okay,
reduced
so
to 2. One of the
I
I
mean,
don't
there was
know.
no evidence to that. Like, there was no charges or there was nothing, right? But because Zeke had his history, and I mean, let's call it like the douchebag tax on Zeke Elliott. I mean, he got those games, and I would argue that what Tyreek Hill has done here is substantially worse. Just, in the perception of a minor. I mean, I don't want to downplay anything that happened from that side of things, but when you talk about abuse to a minor, I think that the league is going to take that very seriously. And I honestly think that it's going to be longer than 4 games, but it's just speculation. So let's go off the assumption that it's somewhere between 4 to 6 games. Going back to your point about where's Tyreek Hill going to be drafted. If it's a redraft, I can tell you that I just started a best ball at draft.com, and he went at 5.5 in a redraft league, or excuse me, in a best ball league, which is essentially you're drafting a guy for a season. So he was falling to the 8th, 9th round before. After this news, he just got picked up in the 5th. And if there's no news that comes out shortly, I bet you he's gonna tweak down into the 4th round. But in Dynasty, I guess really what it comes down to is who would you rather have, right? So let's just throw out some names that are going probably, top 10, top 15 type receivers. I mean, would you rather have Amari Cooper or Tyreek Hill right now in
Tyreek
Dynasty?
Hill.
If you're right. Okay. What about Mike Evans?
That one's
25 years
tough.
old.
Well, in Dynasty, right? Well, because Tyreek is 25 too. I would say that's a tough one. That's a tough one because, well, you know what? I'm gonna go Tyreek.
Over Mike Evans? Why?
I'm gonna go Tyreek over Mike Evans because of the quarterback situation. Not only that, but Mike Evans has 0 run after catch or yak yards. So
he did improve last year. Last year, I think he was a lot better, but
yeah, he improved from 1 to 5.
He catches and he falls, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, but I mean, Jameis Winston might not be the quarterback of that team next year. They might win 6 or 7 games, not even get a chance at another quarterback. And you might see Mike Evans as just the most expensive decoy in NFL football. He's good, but Tyreek Hill is going to have a Super Bowl contending offense for the next 5 years. And I'd rather if you're looking at Dynasty and production of 5, I'm going to take Tyreek's 5 years over Mike Evans's 5 years.
You almost sometimes get these feelings too, like these bigger body wide receivers are like, they just break down faster. I mean, I think about these big tight ends, like a Rob Gronkowski, who just like he was mechanical by the end, right? Just because his body kind of shuts down because they're so big. And I just think of like a compressed tight, like athletic freaking Jaguar Tyreek Hill. What is he? The cheetah, actually. So I guess I
The
shouldn't say
cheetah.
Jaguar. The cheetah.
Jaguars are not fast. No, yeah, they are. They are. They're faster than you. So
yeah, exactly. As long as I'm faster than you, Beck,
yeah,
I'm good.
I know. That's
But like, I
probably
mean,
not
okay,
gonna
I
happen.
don't want to break this down to rankings, but I mean, we're looking at let's look at the top 5 receivers. I would argue.
No, I'm gonna tell you
Okay, so
this. This is the line.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the Juju Smith-Schuster line.
Is it the
Are you
Juju
gonna
line?
take Juju or Tyreek? So anything after Juju, I'm gonna take Tyreek. But the issue is right in that little Venn diagram where Juju and Tyreek both meet in the middle. That's a way tougher conversation because
Yeah.
Juju's young enough. Juju doesn't have the quarterback like Mahomes, but he has shown he can be a prolific number 1 receiver as a number 2, which is exactly kind of where we're looking at Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd has a lot of Juju in him, where he's a number 2, but essentially he's on the cusp of being a number 1. Like in his range of outcomes, he's on his way to number 1 more than on his way to staying a number 2. So that's where I kind of Tyreek or Juju. I would probably go Juju over Tyreek, but right there should be Tyreek and then everybody else behind him.
Yeah, I mean, like I look about who I'd want for, like, obviously Hopkins. We got Juju, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Beckham, and then I don't know, like right around that Diggs, Mike Evans. Like, yeah, like that's when you want to start having that conversation.
Well, see,
In
you
terms of
lump
when
Juju in those first tier guys where
And you
he's
don't?
on the back. Well, he's on the back
Yeah.
tier. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
he's every other of those guys and then Juju, which he's right in the back of that first tier. And then you go Juju, Tyreek, and then you go everybody else. So it's like Juju and Tyreek are kind of in a tier of their own where they definitely are number 1s, but they're not like an Odell. They're not a D-Hop. They're not a Devontae Adams. They just can't. They're not tethered to the same systems. Tyreek, if he wasn't so small and just a downfield threat, then it would be probably a little bit different, but it just is what it is. Same thing with Juju. If he wasn't a number 2 last year and could prove that he was a number 1. So this year is just going to be the the fulcrum for both of those guys. If Tyreek can get back after 4 weeks and then just go nuts, then you're never going to talk about it again until he gets in trouble again, which seems to kind of follow these guys.
And I think to your point, I mean, people are pretty forgiving, and a lot of time it's money talks, right? If you're going to go on the field and you're going to perform, people are a lot more open to forgiving you and moving on, and I guess forgetting about the past than if you go and you're just a donkey on the field. Like then it's like, oh, you're a terrible person forever. But I mean, just at that level, you really are splitting the hairs, and then you look at like a Juju who's got Big Ben, and I mean, realistically, what does Ben have? What, 2 seasons left, maybe? I mean, shit, the guy's talked about retiring the last 2 years, and I think that there's a world where, say, the Steelers underperform again this year. Could you see Big Ben leaving after this season? Maybe at the end of the season, he's always kind of a little bit more beat up. He's slower than he's ever been. I mean, I could see him leaving after this season, and then what's going to happen to Juju, man? Like right now, Big Ben, love him or hate him, he knows how to get Juju the ball, and he knows how to distribute that ball. And I worry a little bit about the future of Juju in 2 years if there is no Big Ben in that offense. I mean, what do they have? Mason Rudolph as a backup right now? That doesn't exactly instill a lot of confidence in me. And then you look at a guy like Michael Thomas, who's got Drew Brees, who, I mean, shit, like Brees continues to have record seasons in terms of accuracy, but is Brees going to play what, 2 more years, 3 more years?
Maybe just a year. I mean, I think this is Drew Brees' last year, because if they don't win the title this year, then I don't see him. I don't see it because
Brees gets protected, right? I mean, he's got Kamara where he can quickly jump off the ball. Like Brees is just, he avoids taking those hits, which means I think he could go another 2 or 3 years. Like look at Tom Brady, right? Like these guys are showing that once they get to that alpha level where they can read defenses and they can distribute the ball and they can avoid taking those big hits, these guys are prolonging their careers into their 40s. And I think that that's the difference between a guy like Breeze and a guy like Roethlisberger, is that Big Ben's taken those hits over the years, which means his body is simply going to fail him, versus a guy like Drew Brees, who hasn't taken as many hits over his career, and he's showing that he can continue to throw the deep ball. And I could see Drew Brees being in the league at least probably 2 or 3 more years. Whereas Ben, after this season, I can see him just, peace, I'm out.
Yeah, I can see Ben taking a hit by week 10 and just being done. You know,
Yeah.
you're right.
Do you remember that?
See...
Do you remember that 5 interception game that he had against the Jaguars 2 years ago? Man,
oh yeah, yeah. That was in. Was that in London?
Actually, I don't remember if that was a London game or not. I just remember, like, after that game, there was talks about retirement. That was down days for Steelers fans, man.
Yeah, and then after the Stormy Daniels news with our president and how Big Ben was, he's a dirtbag, dude.
I didn't hear about that. What happened with Stormy Daniels? I didn't hear about that.
Oh my gosh. So okay, well, okay, so Trump, right?
Come on. Yeah.
Okay, you know
how
about Trump.
That stuff. I'm talking about Big Ben.
Okay, well,
how does
that
Big Ben
night,
relate?
this is how it relates. That night that Trump and Stormy Daniels apparently hooked up, it was Big Ben that walked Stormy Daniels to the hotel room and tried to hook up with her first. And then she was like, nah, then hooked up with Trump for some reason. I don't know. You could say that's alleged, but I doubt it. I mean, like, why would she say something like that?
Where there's smoke, there's generally fire. That's all we're gonna say.
Well, yeah, and Big Ben's a dirtbag. I mean, is he married? He's been.
I don't know.
I don't know. I forget if he is, but he had the rape issues. Like, he's a dirtball. Yeah, he needs to get the hell out of here. And that's, and then when freaking you got Juju sticking up for the guy because that's his quarterback, you almost kind of feel bad for the dude. You get Antonio Brown, who's now off of that team, who is like, man, Big Ben's a dirtball. And it's like, yeah, he is. You kind of have to deal with these guys' fame, and they get away with so much, which is kind of, you feel bad for the NFL almost to a sense, because what are they supposed to do? They are not they're not the police. Okay. This is why Tyreek is not going to get 6 to 8 games or whatever, because the police said Tyreek didn't do anything. So what is the NFL?
They didn't say he didn't do anything. They just said they don't have enough evidence where they think they could convict him.
Okay, same thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, if they can't convict you, then you didn't do it. You're innocent until proven guilty.
That's in the eyes of the law. That's not in the eyes of Roger Goodell, man. I mean, listen, we're not going to go off in too much of a tangent.
You mean the dirtball Roger Goodell? I mean, he's a dirtball too. He's, they need to do something different, because Roger Goodell, I mean, if they were to pick a correct commissioner, they would clean house unbelievably. Like, the league would be so much better.
You know why Roger Goodell is still the commissioner? Because he makes the owners money.
Yeah, I mean, he's a dirtball.
As a Patriots fan, as a Tom Brady fan, I freaking hate Roger Goodell. But what he's done for the league, I mean, like, there's a reason that they are on top. There's the NFL, and then there's everybody else in terms of professional sports.
Yeah, I get it.
I hate to say it, it's because of Goodell, right? He's a businessman.
Yep, I get it. I get it 100%, and it's hard because I love the NFL. So it's like, what do you do when you can't do nothing but support it? So I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. I tried so hard. I don't know.
You know what? This leads me to my next question. So TB12 gets 4 games for doing something allegedly that was never proven, and yet you think that a guy like Tyreek's only going to get 4? How is that? Like, seems so
it's
damn
again
arbitrary.
the same. It's actually the same thing. It's alleged. It's alleged. Nothing really happened. I mean, there's audio in which I think, like, the most recent report is the audio was even a lie too, or something like that, or that they could try to, like, they can try to say, hey, dude, anybody can put out an audio,
Wasn't
and
it like
Tyreek,
a Turkish airport or something?
Yeah, it was in Abu Dhabi, I think.
Right, Dubai. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Dubai, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, Dubai. And so, yeah, why are they in Dubai? I don't get that either. Maybe they're trying to trade rubies.
Dude,
they're bringing rubies.
Have you seen Dubai?
Yeah,
I want to go to
I've seen
Dubai.
it. I don't want to go there, but it's just
Dude, that's
I
just
want to
like
go to
that's a city.
Hawaii,
Yeah,
not
that's a city
Dubai.
made of money though.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
So
getting off
so
topic here.
no, last topic of the cast. You had just meant. I mean, obviously you're fucking nuts for the Patriots. Okay, and
Yes.
you know, and real quick before we get into the Patriots, you know, we talked before the cast a little bit about how you're from Canada, you don't have an NFL team. You have zero NFL presence in Canada other than just the teams that you guys fall in love with. How do you guys in Canada like pick teams that you like? Because you just said to me earlier that you get broadcasted most of the Seahawks games because you're closer to the Seahawks.
Yep.
But how do you end up liking the Patriots, or how do Canadians kind of like, you know, find the team that they like, and how does that happen?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the time it's just it's geographic, right? Like I know when I was growing up, like I've really I would say been into football probably since about 2005, right? So a little over 10 years where I've been like a diehard football fan. And part of that to me, and just in general, is because we didn't get all the games on TV, right? So the games that we would get would be typically the Seahawks games. You get like your afternoon game and just our local cable. Then obviously like with the advent of now just like time shift, and then pretty much like all the games are on TV. Plus I go in and get which our buddy Ryan's gonna love, but I have DAZN that I used to stream the games. Before that I got NFL Sunday Ticket. So you kind of get more access to the different games, and that's when you can really start to like pick and choose the games you want to watch. For me personally, actually, the reason I cheer for the Patriots is because back in the day, I used to when I was working a summer job, we worked in a kitchen, and so we'd work the morning shift, and then we'd have about a 3-hour break, and then we'd go do our night shift. And so during that 3-hour break, I'd go back to my buddy's house, and we would play Madden. And I sucked at Madden, so I'd get my ass kicked pretty much every time I played these guys. But this was again back in the early 2000s, back when the Patriots had their dynasty. Which, I mean, I would argue they still have their dynasty, but this was when they had a strong team. And the way Madden worked is that the best teams in the league were the best teams in the game. So the only team I could ever win with was the Patriots. So as we'd go and we'd play, you start to learn these players' names. You start to understand the teams a little bit. And so then just naturally, I'd get into it and I'd get jacked up. And then by really, it was like the 2004, 2005 seasons is when I really got into the Patriots. And again, it was all because of Madden. So I'd like, shit, that's my team. Before that, and this was when I didn't really know anything about football, and my buddies still bust my balls about this, is I was a Bucks fan. Same thing, simply because they were the only team that I could freaking win with in Madden. And then I kind of saw the light, and I started becoming a Patriots fan. And I think just naturally too is that you're not going to cheer for some crappy team. Like my buddy, who I think you're going to meet later on, who's a diehard football fan, he's a Buffalo Bills fan. And that poor guy, man, like he was a fan since the 90s, back when the Bills were good, but unfortunately he just hasn't seen the light yet, and he still goes and cheers for the Bills. But if
this
you're
is an
like
okay time to be cheering for the Bills,
I mean,
in relation to the last,
decades.
8 years.
Well, last year, man, like we all went up, we all went up to the bar. Like I'm not even a Bills fan, but we all went up to the bar to go watch that depressing freaking divisional, or I guess it was the wild card round where the Bills played the Jaguars, and oh man, that was a freaking painful game to watch. But I mean, as somebody who's new to football, you're not going to go and cheer for some crappy team that's not exciting to
So
watch.
you
Right?
bandwagoned right onto the Patriots team, and
Oh,
for the last
yeah.
10, 15 years, you've just been like just nuts crazy for the best team in NFL football.
Driving that wagon, baby. Absolutely. I mean, it makes it easier, right? But
it
shit,
does.
I'm rocking my Flames jersey right now, and that's just a testament to say, listen, sometimes when you're a Flames fan, you need to go and cheer for a winning team once in a while. You need to get out of that rut.
So, dude, are you a Flamer?
I don't know if I want to answer that.
Come on, that was good. That was good.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that
so
one.
Patriots backfield. What do you got on it? What do you got? So let's go ahead. This will be our last topic. But what do you got on the Patriots backfield?
I think we just need to talk about the Patriots backfield really in relation to Sony Michel and where Sony Michel's been going in drafts. I mean, he's typically going around early fourth, mid fourth round in drafts right now, and
or even early. I've seen him go a little earlier than that.
Late third. I mean, it depends on what league you're in. I mean, I was mentioning to you before we started recording here is that I've been doing a lot of best ball 10s in terms of best balls, and those are full PPR, full 1 point PPR leagues. And you could probably get a pretty decent flavor where you're getting some running backs that are falling in like the Derrick Henrys of the world, the Marlon Macks of the world, that are falling to the late third or early fourth rounds in those types of league setups. But I wanted to see what a team would look like on draft. And so it's, I've only done a few now, but the difference between draft and best ball 10s is that draft's only a 0.5 PPR. So these running backs, man, they are flying off. And like I call it a reach, but I ended up getting Darius Geis in the middle of the 5th round. And I mean, at that point I was reaching, there was probably better receivers available, but in the 5th round, I needed to get a little bit of running back depth because it was drying up pretty quick. But I mean, Sony Michel went in like the early 4th round, and I think that people are just forgetting that. Listen, like they drafted Damian Harris, and in what world do the Patriots only use one running back in their backfield? I think that people are going to get burned if they think that Sony Michel, a guy who's, by the way, he's still not practicing. He's still dealing. He had another scope in his knee. He dealt with it last year in the offseason. And if you look at how the season went, I mean, when we were talking about him last year, it's like, okay, look, this guy, he's going to be a great player. I mean, they drafted him in the 1st round. The Patriots don't draft skill players in the 1st round as of, last year anyways. And a lot of people thought they reached on him, especially considering the guy had knee issues. But what they did was they nursed him throughout the season. They didn't rush him back. They had a strong guy like James White that could step in and play a role as needed. They had Sexy Rexy that could go in and play a couple downs. And so they spread the ball out. And so that Sony Michel was ready for the NFL playoffs. Guess what? That's well after the fantasy playoffs have concluded, which means if you're going to be banking on this guy to get you to the fantasy playoffs and you're going to be using 4th round draft capital on that player, I think you're going to get burned. And I mean, it's not even a situation where like in Jacksonville, where there's a lot of question marks around like a Leonard Fournette, where you can go and you can get him, and then you can go and get his backup, which is what? It's Raquel Armstead? Yeah, is his backup. You can get him with your last pick so that you've locked up that backfield. You can't do that with the Patriots because, they're going to have Damian Harris. They're going to have James White on the field. And I think that it's not a recipe for success because, probably Sony's going to be your 2. You want a 2 that you can plug and play, and he's going to get you 12, 13 points in the PPR every single week, at the least, as a kind of a floor. Whereas I think there's going to be games where Sony goes and puts out 5 points. If he doesn't get in the end zone, I think you're going to be struggling to get points, and I think that that's risky. And even James White, I mean, man, like he led me to the finale last year. I mean, in a PPR league against Sully, but I think that he's being drafted too high. He's going right around the mid 4th, late or early 5th round. And same thing, man. Like he's going to have games where he's going to put up a monster 20, 25 points in PPR, but he's also going to have games where he puts up like 6 or 7 points, 8 points.
That's what James White. That's always been the danger of James White, though. But really, I think by the way, Sony Michel in a dynasty startup 2.7. Like
that's too early, man.
That's way too early. That's way too early. But the issue with the Patriots backfield hasn't been whether or not the guys could potentially score well. It's really the problem of who do you start and when do you start them? It's recency bias, which really clouds our minds always in fantasy football. So Sony Michel is going in the top 4 rounds purely because of his Super Bowl performance. And so also you're going to start James White because the week before he went for 24 points. And then you're like, okay, well, he went for 24 last week. But people don't understand that the game plan is what the game plan is. Sony Michel is not your first down running back. I really don't think that is the game plan. So when you get into games where Sony Michel or the Patriots, are going to be a lot of hard-nosed rushes on first and second down. Be prepared for Damian Harris to be in that role this year.
Absolutely.
And not even close. And like you said, if we were to look at last year as a catalyst of kind of what is to be just looked at, not necessarily recency biased as far as how it is, but it started the same way. Sony Michel, knee scope early in preseason, or you know what I mean? Maybe he'll have another one before the season starts. Maybe he'll miss a couple games. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll miss another couple games. I really don't want to deal with that. I really don't, especially not for second, third, or fourth round draft capital. Now, am I avoiding him? No. I'll draft him in the 6th. I'll draft him before I draft James White, definitely. But it's going to be after Geis. I'm going to draft Geis first. Now, you might say, well, Geis didn't even play last year. Yeah, but Geis was tearing up the preseason before he got hurt.
Before he tore his knee.
Yeah, and he was looking really good. Not only that, but you got Dwayne Haskins there. You got Terry McLaurin there. You got guys that can run all over the field. Geis is going to be dropped right into that offense and can potentially be the reason why that offense really sticks together. So I really like him, but Geis went 5th. 5.12, so 5.12 in a dynasty redraft. And I would still pick Sony Michel after that. So I would have to say 6th round dynasty startup is where I'm going on Sony Michel. And guess who picked up Geis at 5.12?
You're not going to get him there.
Well, I'm not. You're right. I'm not. But it was me. I got guys at 5.12 thinking these guys are donkeys. Okay. And I'm sitting there like, hey, I'll be happy to take guys at 5.12. Now, what I do is I get a little bit rookie crazy. I get a little bit of tingle in the kringles.
In the loins.
On the loins on the rookies. And so after about the 5th or 6th round, I just start drafting complete upside. Well, my problem is that I never come back to earth on some of these picks.
Yeah.
I just start shooting for the moon and then realize in like the 11th round that actually after my first 6 guys, I've got nothing but rookies on my team because nobody else will draft him. I'll be happy to take a Justice Hill way later than he needs to be drafted just to get some upside. But luckily I was able to pull off a Rashad Penny and a Tyler Lockett right in about the 8th round. So I really like it.
Penny?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a
Great.
dynasty redraft or dynasty startup, and Penny hasn't really shown anything on the field. It hasn't been anything. Well, he has a little, but
he's had moments, right?
He's had moments
around the end of last year. Yeah.
But he's not the number 1 RB. So you can't really draft him as a top, even a number 2 RB, really. I mean, that's where you'd be drafting him if you were high on him as a number 2, as your number 2. But man, he might not start games. Like you'd be putting your number 2 running back in there to get you 2 points if he doesn't play.
To your point, though, I think that there's a reason that these guys like the Rashad Pennies of the world, there's a reason they're falling to the 7th, 8th round. It's because, if they were locked in as that number 1 running back on their offense, then these guys would probably be going in the 2nd round, right? Like back into Marshawn Lynch days, like where did he go every year? Probably 1st round, right? Mid to late 1st round every single year, because they knew that they were going to give Lynch the ball, right? And I think that obviously because there's that uncertainty in the backfield. I mean, I saw just in this best ball that I'm doing, back to back went Penny first and Chris Carson, bang bang, and I think that who knows, man. I think that there's going to be a world where they can both be viable starters, similar to the Patriots backfield, where I think that maybe in one drive it might be Penny in the backfield, and the next drive it's going to be Chris Carson, because both these guys, they can catch the ball if they need to catch the ball. They can both be grinders. They can both go in goal line type situations and get that ball into the end zone. So I think that there's a reason that these guys are falling. But frankly, give me Penny in the 8th round all day, every single day, because I'm going to take that risk. Because that's how you win your damn league, right? Like, Matt, if you're not taking any freaking risks, what are you going to do? You're going to finish 4th and 5th every year? I mean, not only does that suck because you're just right out of the money line, but at the same time, you're also going to be getting a shitty rookie pick the next year because you finished right in that that danger zone. So give me the upside of a penny. Same thing with a Royce Freeman, frankly. Like Freeman, this is the kind of guy where he can step in and he can make a difference this year, and he could help you win your leagues. So Freeman's probably going in what, the ninth round, I'd say, if Penny's going in the 8th. Where did Freeman go? Do you know? Do you have it off in front of you?
So it looks like Royce Freeman went in the 9th round. Yep.
There you go,
Yep.
9th round. So that's the sweet spot, man. Because at that point, that's probably when you're going to be considering drafting maybe a quarterback if this is just a 1 quarterback league. This is where you're going to be considering drafting some of those older wide receivers. Like I could see a Julian Edelman going in the 9th or 10th round of a dynasty where he's probably got maybe 2 years left, where he's going to be an elite level player. So that's kind of the range that you're looking at. So give me the young upside running back all day in those sort of positions.
I think we need to realistically, we need to start telling. I mean, we're going to get into our redraft content 100% and some of it, but the content I want to give out to people is not, hey, rankings, top 10, because honestly, my rankings aren't going to mean crap to most people, but I want to give out strategies, because
Absolutely.
I feel like that I'm on a podcast trying to talk about fantasy football. Like I feel like I've got something that I'm building, this strategy for this year that I think is that's gonna win out. I would like to test my strategy and start to develop my strategy. So that's great. But and just to let you know, Shaner, that was our dynasty redraft that I took Lockett at 8.2, then Rashad Penny at 8.3. And then right before that, I took Hunter Henry at 7.8 in a super flex tight end premium. Are you kidding me? I just got the whole heap of value right there.
You got to preface it by saying it's a 10-man league, right? 10-person league. So the rounds are a little bit different than in a typical 12 round, but I mean that's absolute value, man. Like to end this,
I was gonna say, dude, I'm kicking myself because guess what? At 7.8, I took Hunter Henry. At 7.9, I took Christian Kirk. And then our freaking boy Sully took Tyreek Hill at 8.1. And I know
didn't he go Hunt Hill? Boom, boom.
He went Hunt Hill, which a Hunt pick I don't like, but if I would have just went Tyreek Hill instead of Christian Kirk, I know he would not have picked Christian Kirk. And I almost did it. I know I almost did it, but man, Tyreek Hill in a dynasty startup at 9.1, even in a 10 team, that's way too late. But knowing what we know now, hindsight's 2020. This has been a great cast. I am going to tell everybody right now, if you've listened this far, I've got a redraft strategy that I'm going to be testing out. I might try to get it on paper for people to see. What we're going to try to do is we're going to get new graphics in here. I want to start a website so that we can start driving all of our content through our own selves instead of, whatever we're doing now. But we've got a lot coming up. We've got a lot. Flex Mike has got some guys he's going to start interviewing. We're obviously going to continue our podcast. We've got your friend that I want to have on, talk about wrestling, talk about anything that we got going on. I've got another wrestling savant. Maybe we can bring the two guys that we know together. Who knows? Who knows? Should be fun either way we look at it. But Shaner, what's your final sign off? You don't necessarily have to sign off, but I mean, is there anything that's just something you got to get off your chest right now?
Listen, I don't have anything to get off my chest, but I just got to say, man, I'm itching. I am itching for redraft season right now. Like, I think that the kind of the unofficial start of redraft season is typically this July weekend, July 4th in the US, where you guys will have your Independence Day drafts, and we freaking made it, man. We freaking made it, and I'm excited and I'm ready. And you know what? Perfect example of why you're a freaking tease. You've set up our rookie draft for this redraft on like August 20th, which that to me is just the definition of a tease, man.
That's what we had. Well, we had a dynasty startup early, so that was first week of June, and then we wait. We let the rookies develop. We give ourselves a little bit of time. Then we hit the rookie draft. Sleeper is such a fantastic app. I thought I had to like, hey, email him. Hey, Sleeper, can we do this? Boom, boom, boom. There's a freaking option inside of there to have 2 drafts. How amazing. I mean, honestly, how amazing is the league right now? I mean, we're going to do
I love Sleeper, man.
Yeah.
Did you see they got the robots where you can talk trash?
Yeah, the robots are a little bit gimmicky, but they're fun. Yeah. I've got so many leagues that it's like, it's I don't know how much I'm going to use,
different.
But it is different, and it's fun. And what I don't like is it messages everybody when you send a message, so everybody can trash talk. But I don't know if that's good or bad. We haven't got there yet. Like you said, dude, you're itching. I'm itching. We're all itching. Anyway, Shaner, thank you very much for coming on, brother.
Yes,
where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Sealy_Shane. So come check me out. Give me a follow. Typically, I'm just tweeting about fantasy football anyways, or replying or any of that fun stuff. So hit me up. That'd be awesome. Just want to say happy Canada Day to all my fellow Canucks. And happy Independence Day to all you Yanks out there. All
right. Well, I didn't even know Canada Day was a thing, but I would assume that's somewhat like an Independence Day where you guys became
it's where we became a country back in 1867.
Are you legit telling me that like it is 4 days before our July 4th Independence Day, which isn't even the real day that America became America? You tell me that it just happened to be like 4 days before that Canada became
July 1st, man. Canada Day.
Do you think that the American people just chose July 4th to do this because Canada had June 30th and they were like, hey, we want to be 5 days ahead of Canada, and no way we're going to be behind Canada. We're going to be ahead of Canada. You think that they did that just as a couple of donkeys?
Well, okay, listen, my American history isn't quite as good as my Canadian history, but I'm pretty sure you guys had your Independence Day before 1867, right? Like this was like 1700s. Okay, so I would say that you guys had yours first.
It's not that I'm American and just care about American history. I really don't care about history at all. Okay. Yeah. I think that our history in America is a bunch of pillaging and like just taking what wasn't ours. And now I'm a byproduct of that, but I'm definitely happy to be here and not somewhere else. So, I appreciate it.
I'm just going to leave it at this. I'm going to leave it at this for me. The only history that matters is that I kicked your ass the last 2 years in our fantasy football leagues.
Oh my God.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex on the G. Flex.